Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about 5 ways that you could do to make your calisthenics harder. When calisthenics becomes a little bit too easy for you and you want to challenge yourself and you want to push yourself, you already reached the point you've almost mastered or you've mastered some of these exercises. This is a way to really challenge yourself without even touching any weights. You're really pushing yourself past your own body weight and you're adding resistance and you're making things more difficult. And when you get to that point, that's when you really want to push yourself. And these are the 5 ways that I recommend to stick with to make things more difficult, because this is where you could get really strong. Number 1 is using resistance bands. Obviously, using resistance band not just only to help you, to assist you, but you could also use resistance bands to make things more difficult. For example, push-ups, for example, right? We could just put a resistance band behind us like this. We could go down in the ground. You could add 1, you could add 2, you could add thicker, you could add lighter bands. And adding a resistance band is gonna add more resistance and make things harder for your push-ups. Same thing if you're doing dips. I always go to the basics because the basics is the one that we want to make stronger. Yeah, so using resistance bands on the dips is also a good way. For example, just get appropriate level resistance bands, putting up here, adding some resistance is another way to make things harder. On the pull-up too, hooking up a band from the bottom, and then it's gonna add some resistance. So as you pull up, it's gonna make it harder. So there's many different ways that you could do to use resistance bands to make things a lot harder by just adding resistance. And you could just pick your level. You could start increasing the resistance by starting with the lighter band and increasing the thickness and getting it bigger and bigger. But don't be shy in throwing in these resistance bands to make things harder for you in calisthenics. Okay guys, the second way to make calisthenics harder is just adding more weight by adding a weighted vest. A weighted vest is a good way to add resistance to your calisthenics exercise because you're actually wearing the weight, and allows you to do all the calisthenics exercise that you could do, whether it's be push-ups on the ground, pull-ups on the pull-up bar, muscle ups, even body weight squats, lunges, dips. You're wearing the weight over here on your upper torso, so you're just adding weight to your body frame to make things harder. And then obviously you could put in different plates in here for resistance. You could start with 5 pounds, then going up to 10, 20 pounds, 30, 40 pounds. You can increase the difficulty, but just adding more weight into your weight vest. You could also add weight by wearing a dip belt. Obviously, this dip belt is only used for certain exercises where you could just hang the weight off your body without actually touching the ground. So for exercises like pull-ups, I would recommend. For dips, those are the ones that I would recommend to use a dip belt because the feel is a little bit different. So if you're doing pull-ups and dips, a dip belt is a great way to add resistance because you could actually load a lot more weight on here than you would on a weighted vest. You're only limited to a certain amount. But if you're like me and you like to add a lot of weight, like say on your pull-ups and on your dips, when you're stronger, you're gonna need more weight, and that's where a dip belt will definitely come in. Okay guys, and another way to make your calisthenics exercises harder is one of my favorites. My top one is making things slower and controlled. So what I mean is just having more time under tension on an exercises. For example, if you're doing push-ups, right? If you're going slow and controlled and the rep takes longer to do, there's just more time under tension in your exercise, so the muscles are really being worked. And the thing about the slow and controlled, the key term is time under tension, the time that your muscles are being activated and worked. If they're being worked for longer periods of time, they're just gonna get stronger and it's gonna push them even further. So more slow and controlled reps, whether it's on your push-ups, whether it's on your pull-ups, whether it's on your dips, all the basic exercises, always aim for slow and controlled. When things can become easier and you want to get harder, sometimes you don't have to increase your reps. Sometimes you just have to slow them down. And when you slow them down, you're probably going to do, obviously you're going to do less reps, but you're going to just tap out a lot sooner, but it's going to challenge you. It's going to help you increase, it's going to help you better your form. It's going to work more muscle fibers in your body because you're having more time and attention in those muscles. So time under tension and slow and controlled reps is a good way that I recommend to make your calisthenics exercises harder. All right, guys, another way to make your calisthenics exercises harder is by doing explosive movements. Explosive movements is a good way to train your calisthenics exercises to work more of your fast twitch muscles. It's going to really be able to push you to increase the difficulty of the exercises. For example, plyo push-up, plyo pull-up. A lot of plyo exercises involving calisthenics is a good way to make it harder. So obviously doing more plyo style, explosive style movements like Superman push-ups, clap push-ups, you're not going to do as many as regular reps, which is why it is harder. And obviously it involves some practice of a skill to learn how to do the movement. So that's a way to make an exercise harder, is by adding some explosiveness element to it. You're gonna find out that, you know, doing reps with that type of style, you're not gonna do that many, maybe 5 to 10. But it's a good way to throw into your routine when you get to that level, to challenge you to make those exercises harder. I don't recommend you do those all the time, but I do recommend once you're strong enough to do those, to start implementing them into your training, maybe once or twice a week. All right, guys, another way to make calisthenics exercises harder is by doing depth and pause reps. So what I mean by depth is, for example, on your push-ups, so you're gonna be able to grab, for example, dumbbells or parallel bars where you're doing a regular push-up. So by going further down, you're gonna be able to stretch your muscles further down that you would be able to do on a normal rep. And it's gonna really stretch and work more directly and deeply into your muscle fibers to really stretch them out and really challenge them. In the end, by training like this, is going to help you and give you more flexibility and range of motion in your muscles. So typically the rule with this one is, on the exercise that you could do is, for example, is when you're elevated. So on your push-ups, doing them on parallel bars or some P-bars or some dumbbells, or also on your dips, because you're elevated, you're gonna be able to actually go really deep on those dips. Those are the two exercises that I recommend to really work on your depth. Another thing is on the pause. So when you do, for example, a regular push-up, the pause at the bottom is very important. The static pause here at the bottom is a good way to really work on your muscle strength endurance, you know, especially when you're doing like those challenges for the bring Sally up, right? For the bring Sally up challenge, a lot of people get stuck right here. They tire out and they can't, you know, they're very weak right here. But doing your reps and just pausing here at the bottom is going to really work on your muscle flexibility and your muscle endurance. And by doing these, throwing these in, obviously you're going to do a lot less. You're not going to be able to do, say, like if you're trying to do 25 regular push-ups and you're fine with that, doing 25 of these won't be as easy. So when an exercise becomes really easy for you, another way to increase the difficulty is by doing pause reps. And this goes the same with any calisthenics exercises, whether you're on the pull-up bar at the top, you know, you pause at the top and then slow down and then finish your reps, or on your dips. So using this method is another great way to challenge your calisthenics exercise. All right, guys, those were my favorite methods on how to make calisthenics exercises harder when you reach a point where they become too easy. So my favorite from all these methods is just going slow and controlled. Going slow and controlled is gonna allow you to do less reps, but it's gonna really push you and you're gonna have more time and attention on your muscles. So they're gonna be worked extra harder for you to get stronger. And when you're able to do that, you're gonna be able to stay on, for example, on the pull-up bar, on the floor. Things are just gonna be a lot smoother when you're gonna be able to go slow and controlled. So I recommend tackle the slow and controlled first before you do any of the other ones I described, because when you can do slow and controlled, you're gonna be able to just recruit more muscle fibers and more strength into your reps. So out of all of these, that's the one I recommend, but feel free to implement all of these exercises. These are the ones that you want to do to make calisthenics exercises harder. And if you're stuck on the plateau and you need extra help, don't forget, I do offer personalized workout calisthenics exercise on my website. The link is in the description, Medrano.com. Whether you're beginner, intermediate, or advanced, there's many different ways that you can get strong in calisthenics, and I could create a personalized program experience for you with bonus content, bonus videos, exclusive tutorials that you can't see anywhere else on how to learn things like front lever, muscle ups, tiger bend push-ups, one-arm pull-up. There's so many different methods, but if you need help on trying to reach those goals and try to reach that level of strength, I do offer that service there with personalized programs, so hit the link in the description. Again, if there's anything else that you want to know, any type of videos that you like to see next, just comment down below and I'll see you on the next one.